Hi, welcome. Enjoy the content, subscribe, and turn on notifications.
Mitchell had always believed he'd built something solid. 12 years of marriage, a comfortable house in the Atlanta suburbs, 2 cars in the garage, and annual vacations to predictable but pleasant destinations. At 38, he was a respected corporate lawyer, one of those who put on a suit every morning and came home expecting to find the same person he'd exchanged vows with at the altar. Amanda, his wife, worked as a freelance graphic designer, which meant flexible hours and a routine far less structured than his. Mitchell had never seen that as a problem. In fact, he admired her creative freedom, the way she could turn abstract ideas into striking visual projects. They had a good life, or at least that's what he thought until that Saturday morning. Sunlight streamed through the kitchen window as Mitchell made coffee. Amanda sat at the table, absently scrolling through her phone, a steaming cup of green tea in front of her. She wore an old t-shirt, her hair pulled into a messy bun. Mitchell poured his coffee, sat across from her, and mentioned weekend plans, maybe dinner out or a movie at the new theater that had opened in town. Amanda looked at him for a moment, and there was something different in her gaze. Something distant. "Mitchell, I want a fresh start," she said, so casually he almost didn't process the words. He laughed, thinking she meant redecorating the house or maybe a career change. "Sure, we can plan something different," he replied, still smiling. "Want to travel? Rearrange your office? What do you have in mind?" Amanda slowly shook her head, her eyes still locked on his. "No, Mitchell. I need real freedom." The words hung in the air, heavy as lead. Mitchell felt his smile fade. He tried to make sense of what she meant, but Amanda was already getting up, taking her cup to the sink. "That's all," she said without looking back. Just thinking out loud. She left the kitchen before he could ask another question, and Mitchell stayed seated, a strange feeling growing in his chest. Something was wrong. Very wrong. The rest of the morning passed in an uncomfortable haze. Amanda showered, dressed with more care than usual for a Saturday, and announced she was meeting a friend. Mitchell asked which friend, and she answered, Sarah, with a casualness that sounded too rehearsed. He didn't know any close friend of hers named Sarah, but he'd never been the type of husband to interrogate his wife about every outing. Trust had always been the foundation of their relationship, or so he believed. When Amanda left, Mitchell was alone in the silent house. He tried to distract himself with work, opened his laptop, reviewed some contracts, but couldn't focus. Her words kept echoing, real freedom. What did that even mean? Freedom from what? From him? From the marriage? His unease turned into something darker, a suspicion he tried to push away but kept creeping back. He glanced at the computer Amanda used for work, a shared desktop in the office. She'd always left her session open, never hidden passwords or kept digital secrets, at least not as far as he knew. Mitchell got up and walked to the office. The computer was in sleep mode. He moved the mouse, the screen lit up, showing the desktop cluttered with design software icons. He opened the browser, feeling dirty for doing it but unable to stop himself. The browsing history was right there, unprotected. He started scrolling, not even sure what he was looking for. And then he saw it. Recent searches that made his stomach churn: how to ask for divorce without confrontation, rights in divorce after 12 years of marriage, discreet hotels in Atlanta. Each line felt like a stab. Mitchell sank heavily into the chair, his heart pounding in his ears. He wasn't stupid. He knew exactly what this meant. Amanda wasn't just daydreaming about some vague, fresh start. She was planning to leave the marriage. And those discreet hotels could only mean one thing. Anger rose in him, hot and suffocating, but he forced himself to take deep breaths. He was a lawyer, he handled complicated cases every day. He knew uncontrolled emotion led nowhere. He needed concrete proof. He needed certainty. He remembered a recent case at the office involving the recovery of deleted messages in a workplace dispute. He'd learned about simple software that could access message backups from cloud-synced apps. Mitchell downloaded one of those programs, connected Amanda's phone, which she always kept synced to the cloud, to the computer, and started the recovery process. In less than 10 minutes, he had access to conversations she'd carefully deleted. Conversations with a contact saved only as K. The messages dated back 3 months. At first, they were casual, even professional. Kevin, Mitchell discovered as he scrolled further, was a client of Amanda's, someone she'd done a branding project for. But the conversations quickly turned into something far beyond professional. Compliments about her work became compliments about her appearance. Project talk turned into personal confessions, frustrations, dreams. And then, about 2 months ago, the first explicit message. Kevin saying he couldn't stop thinking about her. Amanda replying that she felt the same. Mitchell read every word, feeling increasingly sick. The most recent messages were devastating. Secret meetings at a loft downtown. Declarations of love. Amanda saying her marriage to Mitchell was just a formality that would soon end, and that she was tired of living a life she no longer chose. Kevin replied that once she got rid of the weight of marriage, they could finally start fresh. There were even concrete plans. Amanda mentioned talking to a lawyer to make sure she'd walk away from the divorce with a fair share of the assets. Kevin suggested she ask for alimony, since Mitchell earned well. Something inside Mitchell broke. It wasn't just the betrayal, it was the coldness, the calculation, the way she'd planned every step while pretending everything was normal beside him. He printed everything. Every conversation, every message, every piece of evidence. Then he noted the address that appeared in the messages, the downtown loft. Without hesitation, he grabbed his car keys and left. Atlanta traffic on a Saturday afternoon was chaotic, but Mitchell barely noticed. His mind was focused, almost clinically detached. He found the building easily, a sleek, modern loft-style apartment complex, the kind young professionals loved. Mitchell parked, went up to the indicated floor, and knocked on the door. A man answered, younger than Mitchell expected, maybe 32 or 33, clean-cut, neatly shaved, wearing jeans and a casual shirt. Kevin. His expression shifted from curiosity to confusion when he saw Mitchell. "Can I help you?" Kevin asked, trying to sound polite but clearly uneasy. "I'm Amanda's husband," Mitchell said, his voice too calm, too cold. "And I came to give you something." He held out a thick envelope. Kevin stared at it like it was a bomb. "Look, I don't know what you're talking about. This envelope contains printed copies of every conversation between you and my wife over the past 3 months. Every message. Every photo. Every plan you two made." Mitchell kept his tone neutral, almost professional. "Did she also tell you about the credit card debts in my name? Or that the fresh start she wants is funded by my money while you play the hero?" Kevin went pale. He took the envelope with trembling hands, opened it, and quickly flipped through the pages. Mitchell watched the exact moment reality hit him. I didn't know." "Of course you didn't. She's good at hiding things. But now you do." Mitchell stepped back. "Do whatever you want with that information. My part is done." He turned and walked away, ignoring Kevin calling after him. In the elevator, Mitchell finally let himself feel it. His hands shook, his breathing was uneven, but there was also a strange sense of control. He'd turned the tables. Now it was time for the final act. When he got home, Amanda still hadn't returned. Mitchell moved quickly. He went to their bedroom and started sorting through her clothes and personal items. He filled 2 large suitcases with everything clearly hers: cosmetics, clothes, shoes, books, everything. He placed the suitcases by the front door, clearly visible. Then he went to the living room, gathered all the printed evidence of the affair, and arranged it neatly on the coffee table. He sat on the couch and waited. Amanda arrived around 6 that evening. Mitchell heard her key turn in the lock, her footsteps in the hallway. "Mitchell? You home?" she called, her familiar voice now sounding utterly false to him. She appeared in the living room doorway and froze at the sight of the suitcases. Her eyes darted from the bags to Mitchell, then to the papers spread across the table. What is this?" she asked, but her voice trembled, betraying that she already knew. "Sit down," Mitchell said, pointing to the armchair across from him. Amanda didn't move. "Sit down, Amanda." She obeyed slowly, her eyes fixed on the documents. Mitchell picked up the first set and placed it in front of her. "This is the browsing history from our computer. I see you've been researching divorce. Discreet hotels. Interesting." He picked up another stack. "These are the recovered messages between you and Kevin. 3 months of lies, secret meetings, and plans to abandon me in the most financially profitable way possible for you." Amanda's face lost all color. "Mitchell, I can explain." "No," he cut her off, his voice still unervingly calm. "You can't. There's no explanation that justifies what you did. No excuse for planning to betray me financially while you were already betraying me emotionally and physically. It was a mistake," she whispered, tears starting to fall. "I was confused, feeling lost." "You were confused for 3 months? All those meetings, all those messages telling him you loved him while planning your exit, that was confusion?" Mitchell shook his head. "Don't try to manipulate me, Amanda. I read everything. I saw how you talked about him, how you talked about me. There's no confusion here. There's choice. And you chose." Amanda tried to speak, but he continued. "By the way, I visited Kevin today. I gave him a copy of everything. I thought he deserved to know exactly who the woman was he was risking being an accomplice to adultery for." Amanda's eyes widened. "You did what?" "I handed him the evidence. Told him about the debts you hid from him. About how you planned to use my money to fund your new life together. I don't think he was too happy to learn he was just a pawn in a much bigger game." Mitchell stood up. "I've already filed for divorce. As a lawyer, I know exactly how to protect my assets when there's proven adultery. You won't see a cent beyond what the law requires, and I can assure you, it's not much." "Mitchell, please," Amanda was openly crying now. "We can talk, try to work this out." "Work it out?" He laughed, but it was a humorless sound. "You wanted freedom, remember? You wanted a fresh start. Congratulations, Amanda. You got it. But you'll start over alone, without my house, without my name, and without my money. Your bags are by the door. I suggest you find a hotel. A discreet one, since you researched so many." Amanda tried to step closer, but Mitchell took a step back. "No. Don't touch me. Don't try to convince me of anything. You destroyed 12 years in the blink of an eye, and I won't give you the satisfaction of seeing me beg or fight. Just leave." She stood there for a long moment, sobbing, searching for words that never came. Finally, defeated, Amanda picked up the suitcases and walked out. Mitchell heard the door close and stayed in the empty living room, the silence pressing down on him like a shroud. He should have felt victorious, but all he felt was an immense emptiness. The days that followed were mechanical. Mitchell threw himself into work, focusing on complex cases that demanded his full attention. At night, he returned to the silent house and forced himself to cook, to keep up a routine. Friends started noticing changes, and he eventually told a few close ones what had happened. Their reaction was unanimously supportive. No one could believe Amanda had done that. The divorce proceedings moved surprisingly fast. Amanda tried to contest some points, asked for more time, more money, but Mitchell was relentless. He had the evidence, the law was on his side, and, more importantly, he had the moral certainty of someone who'd been betrayed. The judge was sympathetic to his case, especially after reviewing the documented proof of infidelity and Amanda's financial exploitation plans. The ruling favored Mitchell on nearly every count. Amanda walked away from the marriage with a minimal amount, essentially only what she directly contributed over the years. Weeks later, Mitchell learned through mutual acquaintances that Kevin had ended things with Amanda less than a week after their confrontation. Apparently, discovering she'd hidden significant debts and planned to use divorce money to start a new life with him was too much. Kevin didn't want to be the next one footing her financial and emotional bills. Amanda was left alone, living in a small apartment across town, taking on increasingly scarce freelance projects as the story of her betrayal spread through her professional circles. Mitchell, meanwhile, began rediscovering who he was outside of marriage. He returned to the gym he'd abandoned years earlier, picked up old hobbies like playing guitar and reading without guilt. He reconnected with college friends he'd drifted from over time. Slowly, the house stopped being a mausoleum of bad memories and became his space, reorganized the way he'd always wanted but never suggested because Amanda preferred it differently. 6 months after the divorce, Mitchell looked visibly different, leaner, stronger, with a renewed energy that people around him noticed. He wasn't looking for anyone, wasn't trying to fill the void with another relationship. He was simply living. A coworker, Sarah, started chatting with him more often. Casual lunches turned into occasional dinners. Mitchell didn't force anything, he let it unfold naturally, and discovered there was life after betrayal, a life perhaps even better, more honest, more authentic. One night, while having dinner with Sarah at a cozy restaurant, his phone buzzed. It was a message from an unknown number, but he recognized the tone immediately. Amanda. Mitchell, I know you probably don't want to talk to me, but I need to tell you I'm truly sorry. Really sorry. I ruined everything. I was lost and made terrible choices. You deserved so much better. I hope one day you can forgive me. I hope you're doing well. Mitchell read the message twice. He felt a twinge, maybe pity, maybe one last spark of anger. But then he looked at Sarah across the table, smiling as she told a funny work story, and realized it didn't matter anymore. Forgiveness wasn't something he needed to give to move on. He'd already moved on. Mitchell blocked the number without replying and put his phone back in his pocket. Sarah asked if everything was okay, and he smiled, genuinely. Yeah. Everything's great. And it was. Because the real fresh start wasn't the one Amanda had planned. It was the one Mitchell had built alone, with dignity, self-respect, and the certainty he'd never again let someone treat him as disposable. He'd lost a marriage, but found himself. And in the end, that was the victory that truly mattered. Months turned into a year. Mitchell thrived at work and was promoted to junior partner at the law firm. His relationship with Sarah grew into something serious, but built on entirely different foundations. There was honesty, open communication, mutual respect, things he'd thought he had with Amanda but now realized had never truly existed. Amanda, on the other hand, continued her downward spiral. Without the financial stability her marriage to Mitchell had provided, without the professional network she'd built through him, she struggled to maintain her career. The small apartment, mounting bills, loneliness. She reached out to him a few times through mutual friends, always with messages of regret and pleas for a second chance. Mitchell never responded. One day, nearly 18 months after the divorce, Mitchell was at the grocery store when he saw Amanda across the aisle. She looked tired, older, with a defeated expression he'd never seen before. For a moment, their eyes met. She took a step toward him, her mouth opening as if to say something. Mitchell simply gave a polite nod, turned his cart, and walked in another direction. There was no anger, no hurt, nothing. Just indifference. And in that moment, he knew he was truly free. The last time he thought of Amanda was a few months later, when he and Sarah were planning a trip to Europe. They were in the living room, now completely redecorated, looking at maps and debating itineraries. Sarah mentioned something about Paris being the city of love, and Mitchell laughed. "I think real love doesn't need Paris. It happens right here, in everyday life, in the little things." Sarah smiled and kissed him, and in that moment Mitchell realized the fresh start Amanda had talked so much about was never about her or some cheap affair with a stranger. It was about him learning to value himself, refusing to accept crumbs of affection disguised as love, and finding the courage to begin again even when the ground had collapsed beneath his feet. And he'd done it, not just survived, but flourished. Thank you for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you won't miss any updates. See you next time.